all your current knowledge about European genetics is wrong and outdated, and either based on unrepresentative haplogroup maps or incorrect confusion between genetics, ethnicity, nationality, and other anthropological categories. That's not your fault, as there's nobody to tell you the real story, and in mass culture this topic is avoided or demonized. Here, I will open your eyes to the real European genetics, which every descendant of Europeans or a person interested in Europe must know, or at least understand the basics. Let's begin. Firstly, let's deconstruct the common point of view and myths about genetics. This is how an average person imagines European genetics, and even more frequently people just imagine Slavic or Germanic genetics and confuse other irrelevant things with it. I suggest contemporary mainstream definitions of nationality, ethnicity, and genetics, where nationality is an attachment to the nation-state. Ethnicity is your cultural descent and genetics is your permanent hereditary information, which cannot be changed or discussed, just shown clearly and objectively in a test. Let's not confuse these terms, and that will solve 99% of the problem. Separating genetics from nationality and ethnicity will give you 99% more understanding of the problem than the average person has. Moving to the next topic. Are haplogroups valid in identifying a genetic cluster? And the answer is no. Haplogroups show your direct patrilineal or matrilineal ancestor, ignoring 99.9% of your ancestors and therefore the whole genetics. They are relevant and quite useful when researching historical migrations, conquests, and other population changes, although they do not provide any significant knowledge about genetic clustering of people, just their common direct patrilineal/matrilineal ancestor. The third thing is a myth which I need to expose before moving to the main topic, the real genetics. According to numerous pieces of evidence, genetics is not necessarily reflected in physical appearance, especially in a population like Europeans, where initially rich and diverse ancestry evolved into a quite homogeneous people, where an ancient man can be absolutely different from a contemporary man in terms of facial features, while having exactly the same ancestry. The real genetics are in autosomal DNA, which includes 99% of your DNA, not just patrilineal/matrilineal ancestors, and it's completely unrelated to any socio-cultural trait. Nevertheless, to avoid confusion and naming genetic clusters as 1, 2, 3, AKF202, like haplogroups are, and to compare them with reality, we use conventional names for genetic clusters. The narrative will be consistent and consecutive, starting with the Paleolithic Europe. The Paleolithic or Old Stone Age world was plain simple. West Eurasians, East Eurasians, Basal Eurasians, with occasional mixes of the three main populations and rarely changing physical appearance. The reason for such a persistent stance was the isolation caused by the Ice Age. The East Eurasians mixed with the West Eurasians to form the ancient North Eurasians, the great wanderers of the North, a hunter-gathering population in severe conditions that desperately needed to invent and discover in order to survive. Their character was formed by this circumstance, and despite the modern belief, did not increase their intelligence, since the cold winters theory has been recently disproven. It is the group where blonde hair emerged, and when the time had come, they began their expansion and massively spread throughout Eurasia and the Americas, although Europe at the time was primarily populated by heavy and harsh Epigravidian culture, who evolved directly from the West Eurasian, hence their similarity to the European Cro-Magnon. They were isolated by the glacier and developed a distinct and interesting culture that later expanded throughout Europe. The last important genetic group is the Basal Eurasian, a cluster crucial for us to understand the following epoch, as the group evolved in the Middle East and mostly formed it. Their habitat was rich with resources. The Middle East at the time was the center of the world, and any flora and fauna would have been present here, allowing hunting and gathering with exceptional ease. The question of survival there wasn't even relevant, as the vast territory and food let them have fun and prosper. What happened to all of these people? Why the disposition changed so much? Let's now consider the Mesolithic, or the Middle Stone Age, the pivotal moment that defined the future and mostly concluded the evolution of the West Eurasian region and genetic descendants of the Paleolithic groups. All of the groundwork that had been preparing to emerge finally took its place. The wanderers of the north emerged into the Eastern Hunter-Gatherer, or EHG, occupying large territories of northeastern Europe. They preserved their way of life, mixing a little with the Epigravidian or Western Hunter-Gatherer, or WHG now, who finally conquered Europe after the glacier retreated. Deer hunting, wandering, trading, thinking, and myth-making, all of these things thrived in the Mesolithic EHG, shaping a distinctive and recognizable archetype. But they only lacked one thing: intelligence, due to the absence of resources and the fact that they had not the slightest idea of how to overcome this miserable state. Instead, they prioritized their strong sides until the saviors finally arrived. But we'll talk about that in the Neolithic section. In essence, the only limiting factor was the inability to start gene culture coevolution, when the improvement in material culture and social structure drives the society to select smarter people and increases the benefits of being smart by providing them with resources. And reversely, the smart people preserve this structure and generate more sophisticated culture. Hence the term gene culture coevolution as the main driver of the IQ rise. Both WHG and EHG had this problem. However, the WHGs solved the problem another way. They took the Neanderthal approach, not surprisingly, as both the WHGs and the Neanderthals flourished in Europe. This way is virtually a constant desire to grow stronger and harsher, not trickier. They were not interested in fooling, trading, myth-making, but rather in justice and survival. For the only way to achieve stability and prosperity in that climate was to respect the one with strength and make the smartest your leader, while quickly eradicating any ridiculous opportunists. You want answers and simplicity. You use lies only if it fits your worldview or helps a greater cause. You on your own will not exist, as there are no deer to hunt and maintain your individual cave. Here we see the similarity and difference of WHGs and EHG, able to lead, justify, lie, find ways, and survive at all cost, but willing to do this for a different purpose and with a different motivation. The Westerners are irrational and value-driven, with their vitality based on attending the way, while the Easterners are rational and pragmatic. They don't care what others say about them, until that becomes a direct threat. The Westerners don't care either, until it has to do with opposing justice, if the word you said is intentionally opposed to their values. The second duo is a descendant of the basal Eurasian, and includes Anatolian hunter-gatherer and Caucasian hunter-gatherer. The first is a mix of West Eurasian with basal Eurasian, and the second is the same, but with an ancient North Eurasian admixture as well. As said in the previous section on Paleolithic, they enjoyed numerous plants and animals to gather and hunt respectively, allowing the excessive resources to produce the elite of thinkers and masters that eventually led them to building enormous structures. Without even inventing Neolithic farming, they were driven by religion, and only the faith helped them to get together and organize massive societies to build these masterpieces. As should be clear now, they are the ones who experienced the gene culture coevolution, which we discussed not a long time ago, and that allowed them to construct the first cities and workshops, as well as to start farming and domestication of animals. Nevertheless, it's depressing and obvious that if they managed to maintain cities, culture, and society close to Neolithic, while staying a hunter-gathering population, the level of intelligence that they achieved was at a plateau and was in lack of need to increase further, marking the end of the gene culture coevolution for the moment, but not for Europe. The main difference between the Anatolian hunter-gatherer, or AHG, and Caucasian hunter-gatherer, or CHG, is the geographical one, steppe and mountainous, which in combination with ancient North Eurasian admixture gives the CHG a perfect ground for a pastoral society, which will pay off later in the Neolithic. The AHG, on the contrary, are more adjusted to farming and a settled way of life. The religiousness and traditionality of the basal Eurasian in AHG finds its harmonical second part in combination with the European Westerner, allowing the justice-seeking man of values to insert his worldview into the divine framework, securing the society from any unwanted change, a conservative or rather social conservative system. The CHG would want a reverse thing, due to its ancient North Eurasian admixture, to crush the current or alien system and install a good order, an order which gives an opportunity to a young seeker and peace to an honored elder, or at least provides a chance to pursue his glory by defeating the enemies and the criminals. Combining all of the three principal components, it uses them to construct a distinctive genetic cluster of a traditional and religious, wandering and deep-thinking, value-driven and justice-seeking, all-Eurasian melting pot that is very sustainable in itself, but without a driver to unleash its full potential, and therefore for a long time remained a local Caucasian variation, only holding the ground, not expanding it. Only this combination could give rise to the Zoroastrian type of religion, with clear opposition between forces of good and evil, which was rare and unnatural for the others, and appeared in Christianity only as secondary to the instruction of righteous living in order to reach heaven, and was caused by the Persian influence on the Jews. The fight of good and evil in CHG is fought during one's life and is a life and death question that drives the mind, separates the world into us and them, better and worse, black and white. Talking about religion, let's briefly review the other groups. AHG would likely be interested in a Catholic-like, Roman, or Greek paganism, with the ritual and holiday part as the main source of divinity, a peaceful and social religion for relaxing and celebrating life, when possible of course, resembling a Vanir or Mother Goddess spirit of Neolithic Europe. The WHGs would prefer a Jotun-like primordial faith, a rather primitive, but efficient and natural belief in the universal powers and feelings that drive your reptilian brain, and hence, your survival by a safe road. Finally, the EHGs are concentrated on the shamanistic cults that will be of practical use to them, or to their weird ratio. Indeed, the national epic of these people is full of contradictory moral truths, to the point where at the level of religion, they admit that moral truth is quite subjective and vulnerable to distortion. A lot of the heroes die or suffer without having a common goal as to fight a common evil. Everyone has their own interest. Someone is strong and someone will lose. Some actions will have consequences, and no one knows whether they will be good or bad. Life is unpredictable, harsh, and at the same time gives borderless opportunities. That is a depressing religion, building a strong seeker mind. But if put in the right conditions, it can explode rapidly into the lands of the soft ones. Now, understanding the disposition of the forces before the decisive battle, let's move to the battlefield and see how these factions turned out. The war begins on soil and in the mines, a ruthless and defining fight that will shape the vast area to the west of the Ural Mountains for the following thousands of years. The imminent expansion had started the period of conflict. The Anatolian hunter-gatherers, who acquired the farming techniques and obtained the ability to maintain huge populations outside of the fertile region of the Middle East, had finally entered European land and started to overwhelm the local hunter-gathering Jotuns. Using their superior technology and so far excessive intelligence, they managed to diffuse over the fruitful shores of southern Europe, exploding in numbers and building outstanding civilizations, comparable to the ones in the Fertile Crescent, making these wine coasts their eternal realm of delight and grace. After taking the easy grounds, their gaze was directed to the north and firstly, building their fortified villages, they could resist the rage of the native population, although the end was quite predictable. Mastering the new technologies, a more vital population, not bound to the newly invented egalitarian plagues, took back control in the areas of low fertility, undermining the efforts in Germany and Poland. The more time passed, the more WHG genetics were revived, creating a new gradient structure of Europe, with a more Jotun-like north and a farmer-dominated south. Their intelligence, mostly, was at around 90 to 95 IQ points, or 0.5 standard deviations from the average level, allowing a mediocre civilization to persist. Given time, probably, they could have built a developed web of fortifications, and using the spirit of the WHG, fought to the death on their soil, unlike the careless Middle Easterners during the Bronze Age collapse. But in reality, the feast should have ended. A beast emerged, a perfect, complete, and unstoppable murder weapon. The danger of Eurasia, the Yamnaya culture. A fair and effective mix of already known to you EHG and CHG populations. The seeker-wandering trader and honor-liking good fighter. The steppe lords. one living in the boreal forest and the other in the mountainous space. The steppe was a home to them during the faraway Paleolithic times, when the forests only began to occupy the vast spaces of North Eurasia. It formed their mindset once, and formed their culture again. CHG, transferring pastoralism, in the conditions of the steppe, made it an overwhelmingly winning strategy, as the grasslands allowed them to grow a significant population of livestock. This economic stance contributed to their being in a direct way. Firstly, the livestock, unlike farmland, was exceptionally simple to steal or kill, also to move, if you want to avoid the two preceding things, and having a mix of an eagerly desiring population and a moral cunning egoist, you will receive the logical outcome. Everyone will try to get as much livestock as possible, by all means, and form the war bands to either protect or conquer, although mostly both. The natural selection here naturally resulted in the emergence of great physical strength and extraordinary height, all particularly caused by increased milk drinking. The most important thing is the rapid growth of weaponry and technologies, metalworking, and other attributes of civilization that are rarely seen in pastoral societies. Their intelligence is known to be the same as that of the Neolithic farmers, due to the same Middle Eastern genetic influx. The main problem that arises within such a configuration is quite obvious. Some of the men will not have enough. They will want more if they won the steppe, and they will want something if they were deprived. These war bands are the striking force that in one decisive strike crushed the Tripilia culture, that despite having remarkable fortifications could not resist the onslaught. Advancing further to the west, they took the local brides for themselves. That in particular led to the lighter pigmentation. In the globular amphory area, they mixed well and probably just incorporated the local WHG Jotuns. That is evidenced by the preserved paternal DNA of the Jotuns and the dead one of the farmers from the Middle East. In a way, this was a liberation, but the replacement, ironically, was as well partly Middle Eastern. In the long term, this policy led to Yamnaya constituting 50% of the northeastern European genetics, respective to the bride's theory, where the 50% are the Yamnaya man part, and the other 50% are attributed to the locals. It should also be really obvious, but in fertile southern Europe, the expansion was fairly stopped, and the massive farmer population preserved genetic dominance, although 20 to 40% there was still Yamnaya related. The interesting region is northwestern Europe, primarily the British Isles, Benelux, and northern France, as unlike northeastern Europe, the dominating culture there was not corded ware or battle axe. The culture there represented a westernmost tribe of corded ware, the Bell Beaker culture, that evidently was harsh enough to slaughter the male population of the conquered nations. We don't really see the paternal haplogroups of WHG there anymore, as well as in southern Europe, but there it is at least compensated by the larger percentage of local genetics autosomally. This phenomenon is unclear, but most probably is caused by the Bell Beaker cruelty, not the resistance of the locals. The genetic landscape had been formed. Let's now consider the consequences. Now it was a competitive region, filled with eager and daring technology and the human resource, with access to the trade routes and knowledge. The closer it was to the south, the better it turned out to be in the end. Indeed, Rome and Greece surpassed any of the possible rivals, only because of the closeness to the existing Middle Eastern civilization. The Celts were in second place, acquiring significant wealth, constructing great castles, and introducing complex social structures, up to massive confederations the size of France. The Iron Age indeed led to the European rise, by slow natural selection and improvement, a new type of gene culture coevolution, where the most prominent states rose and shaped the future forever. We now know that in the Iron Age and Republican Italy, the IQ was up to one standard deviation higher than the modern one, approximately 110 points. In the modern world, even the famous East Asian IQ record holders don't pass this bar set by Romans. This mix of seekers, survivors, fighters, and builders, given the climate circumstances, started to just flourish and gave us the beautiful classical civilization, the Greco-Roman world. Unfortunately, living at the distant shores and just wiping each other out for a single fjord, Germanic and Slavic people could not achieve the same level of success as even the Celts experienced. Up until the Age of Enlightenment, their intelligence was at around 95 IQ level, corresponding to the levels of the initial yamnaya and farmer mixture. It is interesting that during the imperial ages, the IQ in Rome declined significantly and most certainly led to the collapse of the sophisticated and developed institutions. Nevertheless, during late antiquity, the IQ level rose and continued rising in the Middle Ages, marking the success of the Italian city-states and the cause of the Renaissance. Probably, besides the Byzantine, Italy was the only region that persisted intellectually during the Middle Ages and even invented new things continually. Despite that, the Republican levels were never reached, being at around 105 IQ. The modern level, as expected, declined to the 100 IQ average and underscores the common mediocrity of the modern European civilization, compared even to 2,000-year-old entities. As clearly seen now, modern Europe is composed of 4 elements: WHG, EHG, AHG, and CHG. The mixtures of them were unformed yet, in a way that would present an effective living organism. So largely what we have left from the Mesolithic is the very foundation of the Western Eurasian genetic map. For instance, the Yamnaya model, a mixture of the EHG and CHG Mesolithic groups, couldn't handle the pressure of the environment and hasn't survived to the modern days, mostly since the Zeus-like patriarchal system is toxic to any of the 4 components taken separately, and therefore to any significant person in West Eurasia, becoming a constant object of persecution. Every one of the Northern Europeans has approximately a quarter of each of the groups in their DNA, with rare exceptions. Mostly it's islands like Britain and Sardinia, faraway regions of Northern Europe, and other isolated or migration-vulnerable zones. But the internal clustering is a subject for another video, as there's no visible contribution to the difference that we see in Europeans, and it rather represents an interesting humanitarian knowledge, not a useful apparatus. The medieval decline, as now clearly obvious, was primarily caused by Germanic and Slavic migrations during the barbarian invasions that fell upon Europe. Hans Gunther was partially right, since the cause of the decline was in genetics, yet in reality, the Nordics were the ones to decrease it, while the Middle Eastern migrants contributed their part only to the decline of the southernmost provinces of Rome. During the Middle Ages, Vikings still weren't particularly bright. Together with the other corded were descendants. Scandinavians and East Slavic peoples, in fact, are genetically more alike than Scandinavians and Germans. But that's a topic for another video as well. The last point I'd like to make is that all of the descriptions of the 4 fundamental European populations are suitable for any Northern European in a certain circumstance. Each of the archetypes lives inside us and appears reasonable for anyone under a certain point of view, but certainly some of the archetypes are easier to master with your genetic indicators and seem far more natural given the lifetime experience. And this is the topic of the next video. What are the European archetypes and how to understand who you are, what your purpose in life is, and how to become better? This video about European genetics was an essential introduction to perfectly understand the consequent video. So I would consider it as a means to prepare the viewer for the really new and unique worldview that is natural and useful for any European. To understand yourself, first you need to understand your ancestors. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if the video sparked your sympathy, and comment if you disagree with something that I have stated. Gods be with you.